Now, as promised, I'm joined now by top Tory, veteran Tory David Davis. He's the MP for Halton, Price and Howden. David, I wanted you to reflect first of all on the COVID inquiry. It made the headlines in the week, most notably for Dominic Cummings's fruity use of language. But are you, like me, a bit worried that this inquiry isn't going to really deliver the findings that we need? It seems to be obsessed with sort of the triviality of the infighting in Number 10 and not really answering any proper questions on our pandemic preparedness, whether we would be able to avoid a similar crisis in the future, and whether indeed the modelling that was relied upon for the decisions made around lockdown was accurate and should have been relied upon. Should we have taken a more Swedish approach? I haven't heard any of these answers yet. I don't know about you.
Well, the one person who's, I think, talked about it at all is Mark Woolhouse. It's the best evidence anywhere. And I recommend your viewers to look up Mr. Woolhouse, Woolhouse. He's a professor of epidemiology in Scotland, in Edinburgh, and he's actually very sensible. But you're dead right. I mean, this KC, I've forgotten his name, who's doing all the cross-questioning, is strong on theatre and completely absent on forensic analysis. I mean, he deals with witnesses really from a very polar point of view. He was very nice to the deputy cabinet secretary. He was ferocious in his questioning, if it was really questioning, of Cummings. Now, look, I am absolutely the least. The last person in the world to be a fan of Dominic Cummings, but I don't think it was an intelligent cross-questioning at all. All it was about was his swearing. Well, frankly, what does that matter? I mean, all right, it makes great TV and it's fun to watch, but actually this inquiry is about stopping us making the same mistakes next time.
Yes.
I mean, inquiries always want to parcel the blame.
Yes.
And if you can do that, there's the wrong way to do it anyway. But it's about stopping it happening again to the tune of hundreds of thousands of lives. That's what rides on this. And it's done not a single thing to actually advance that cause. You're right. Where's the analysis of the previous preparation? I was in cabinet when Operation Cygnus, I think it's called, was reported back on. It was a hopeless exercise. I only spent about 20 minutes in cabinet. I actually said, I think I was the only other cabinet minister other than Jeremy Hunt who spoke, and the Prime Minister. And I just said, we need to spend a whole day on this, not 20 minutes.
Yeah. I mean, I know you're no fan of Boris Johnson, David, but at the same time, with such a lack of preparedness, wouldn't any Prime Minister have found themselves in a pickle when it came to actually handling this pandemic? Yes,
they would. There's no doubt about it, because nobody was prepared for it. The rest of the world was essentially copying China. I never thought I'd ever say those words.
Yeah.
Was essentially copying China. We very nearly... and if we'd gone on our sort of previous scientific advice, we very nearly followed the Swedish route. But we buckled. We panicked. For about 10 days, we panicked. And if I want to blame Boris for anything, it would be for that. It would be for letting his people panic. The truth is, a lot of this has been posed, by the way, as sort of lockdown versus nothing. And of course, that in itself is stupid. Because actually it's a whole range of options. The Swedes didn't go on partying every day throughout COVID. They behaved with common sense.
Yes.
They stopped mass gatherings, big sports events and whatever, and they made some of the same mistakes as us. But, they went a common sense route. We could have sold that to the public. The other argument, of course, has been put is, oh, well, we just followed the public, which is probably true. We could have sold the argument to the public, look, don't do this. Let's just protect the elderly. Let's just protect the people in care homes. That would be a good idea for a start. Let's make sure we do proper research and do what we did properly on, which was successful on vaccines and so on. There was a middle way in all this, and actually the middle way would probably have been worth tens of thousands of lives and millions of people's futures. I'm thinking of children and university students. None of that has surfaced in this. Not at all. Frankly, if it goes on like this, I'd cancel blasted inquiry. It really is not. It's going to cost hundreds of millions of pounds, and it's not going to do anything.
And also, let's reflect on the fact that Sweden's inquiry is already concluded and lessons have been learned. Let's just move on to the Mail on Sunday. I don't know if you've seen it, David. Lots more allegations from Nadine Dorries. We've already heard from her talking about Michael Gove cabal bringing down IDS. You were obviously one of his opponents for the leadership in those days, so perhaps you've got a comment on whether that's true. Also, these quite serious allegations to suggest, quotes from the headlines, the Tory party covered up for serial rapist MP. Do we need an investigation? Oliver Dowden was party chairman at the time, claims no knowledge of this.
Yeah, all I've seen the headlines. I haven't read the actual article. But well, if there is serious evidence of a cover-up, then it should be exposed. There's no two ways about it. It's a rape case, isn't it? From what I heard, or an alleged case. Well, you know, there's no argument in the world that can support covering up such a thing if it's true. Now, I know literally zero about that. But obviously, if I mean, covering up a case like that is a criminal offence in its own right. Yeah. So it's probably a matter for the police, not for people.
Indeed. Let's ask you about something you do.
I was going to ask you in terms of sort of plots.
Yes, plots. I mean, Michael Gove is bringing down leaders.
There's a part of me that sort of reacted, well, gosh, there's a political plot to bring down a Tory leader. Hold the front page. You know, of course there have been political plots to bring down leaders for as long as I can remember. When I was a student, Margaret Thatcher was working on bringing in Ted Heath, you know. And in that respect, in terms of what she has said about a plot against Duncan Smith, yeah, there was. I mean, I was his chairman at the time for a while, and then in his shadow cabinet as other things, and there was obviously a plot marshalled against him, and one or two of the names that she's mentioned were involved in that.
Doogie Smith.
So I think that, yeah, he was one of them. I think
Michael Gove.
He was famous for all sorts of other things, wild parties and so on.
Yes.
But the Gove, I don't know. Gove, I just don't know. He might well have been. I mean, it was quite an extended group. And bear in mind, it brought in Michael Howard as his replacement, and quite a lot of people who were involved in the sort of the Cameroon set were at the fringes. I don't know how much they drove it, but they're at the fringes. So it'll be when it comes out, it'll be an interesting read from that point of view. Now, the fact that these people may turn out to be serial plotters would be no surprise either. I mean,
what, Michael Gove? A serial plotter?
Well, he's certainly, Boris would take that view of him after the way he treated Boris during Boris's first abortive run at the leadership. Of course, Gove was very famous for what he did there. But whether he was serially involved in all of them, I just don't know. But it's possible. It's possible. Look, Nadine's been closer to the centre of power than I have for a long time, and I'm not one of those who just dismiss her. She's a very intelligent lady. She's come from like me, from a lowly background. But she's a very intelligent lady. She's been very controversial at a time, very brave in some of her views. So I would read it seriously. I can't dismiss it at all.
One brief answer, please, from you, David, on the issue of this march on Armistice Day. Should it go ahead?
It can go ahead, but not through the cenotaph. I mean, it wants to start in Hyde Park, fine. It wants to go to the American Embassy, fine. Go over to Chelsea Bridge. You know, it's as simple as that. And the police have the right and powers. There are acts of Parliament going back to 1986 right through to 2023, which give the government and police lots of powers to both injunct and control and put limits on this, and that's what they should do.
David Davis, clear as crystal as ever. Thank you very, very much for your contribution this morning. Lovely to speak to you.